sobie cokolwiek spytać, czy uwagę, że na słowecznie i to potem przełożymy. Może?
No.
Dobra, to tak dalej. Okay. So hi also to our public who is watching us live on YouTube. This video will be also on YouTube to watch it afterwards. So welcome at the offDAC event with the title Digital Art is Feminist Tool. offDAC is a platform for investigating the intersection of feminism, art and technology. And this platform has various activities, and one of the activities is this regular type of event where we want to discuss urgent topics with invited artists and other professionals. And also we are building a library, a physical library, and another strand of our activities is open source feminist hardware. So if you want to know more about our activities and join our community, you can do it on offDAC.com, where you find all the information. So, and for today we have very first a pilot offDAC event where we invited Slovak 3D artist Paula Malinowska. Paula, welcome. And Paula is a photographer and 3D artist based in Bratislava, Slovakia, and her work is based on the medium of photography, which she uses to create 3D photogrammetric scans of plant ecosystems. And my name is Silvia Binda Heiserova. I am a multimedia artist and researcher, and today I will conversate with Paula. Okay, so we here in the space in Bratislava where we are just now, we just watched the 3D animated film by Paula. It's titled "How Did Daphne Turn into a Plant? Our feet, just now so swift, hold fast in resistant roots." And you, Paula, in this artwork, you are rethinking or reinterpreting all the ancient Greek myth. And this myth is about the Daphne. It's a story about a woman who becomes a tree or changes into a tree to escape sexual violence, sexual assault. And could you please, for the beginning, could you tell us more about your thought on mythology? Like, why do you believe we need to rewrite the old mythologies and write new mythologies? And also, I would like to know if you could share with us why did you choose to rewrite this specific myth of Daphne?
So, I don't know if you are familiar with the story of Daphne. So, in short, the story goes, Daphne, which is a water nymph, runs through the forest chased by God Apollo, who wants to catch her and rape her. And the only way how she's able to escape the rape is into transforming into a laurel tree. So this is the myth. This myth maybe you can know from the art history. I guess the most famous example is the Bernini statue, which you could
at the end of your short film.
Yeah, it was not like there, but the shape was there.
Yes.
The reason why I chose this myth is that it's one of the first written records of the sexual violence ever. And for me, when we speak about intersections of gender justice and climate justice, I think they are merging in this myth. If we do the critical analysis with the feminist perspective, we can also think about how this old myth is shaping our present. So I was thinking about how could we rewrite or interpret this story in contemporary context of 21st century, which is necessarily framed by climate catastrophe, rape culture, fight for bodily autonomy, with constant attempts of politicians for abortion laws. Maybe what is worth mentioning is that this story is a part of a book, Metamorphosis, by ancient poet Ovid. And this book is considered one of the most influential literary works for Western culture. It was a huge source of inspiration for Dante Alighieri, for Shakespeare. So yeah, the Western culture is actually built on top of these stories of transformation, which are based on the element of violence. So yeah, you have in all these metamorphoses, you have more myths, usually women transforming into non-human beings, just as plants or animals, as an act of domination. So I was exploring this intersection of comparing the nature in relationship in the context of climate catastrophe and attempts to look for some new sensitivity towards the planet today, and also like comparing the women body in the fights for bodily autonomy. So yeah, I think we need new mythologies which would fit these contexts I mentioned before. So I guess I answered the question.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I think that you are bringing together like many different problematics, and maybe your strategy is also to use the digital tools to imagine new worlds, like literally imagine something that the tools we knew before the digital era would not produce such an outcome. So when we are talking about the gender justice and climate justice, in your artwork, it's an area that you are exploring and the connection between it. No? And I personally think that you really succeeded in intertwining these two concepts that maybe at the first sight could seem like not related, the gender justice and climate justice. And you are approaching this topic through a post-humanist perspective. And not only in this artwork, but also in other of your artworks, this post-humanistic vision is present. And in this context, I would like to quote the feminist philosopher Rosi Braidotti, who in her writing on posthumanism states that the new transversal alliance across species and among posthuman subjects opens up unexpected possibilities for the recomposition of communities, for the very idea of humanity. These are not confined to negative bonding in terms of sharing the same planetary threats, climate change, environmental crisis, or even extinction. What Braidotti proposes here is a more affirmative approach to the redefinition of posthuman subjectivity, as in the counter-models of the extended nature culture self, as an alternative to classical humanist subjectivity. Many more models are thinkable if we collectively choose to experiment systematically of what we might be capable of becoming. And I think that this quote perfectly describes actually your practice, because you are imagining these new models in your artistic visions, where also the boundaries between human, non-human, the plant, the gender as well, all these boundaries disappear. So my question for you is, how do post-humanism and post-human feminism influence your artwork? And specifically when thinking about the connection between gender justice and climate justice.
So maybe I would start with the very notion of metamorphosis, which, I guess I was curious, like, what happens in the places in between the human and the plant, in between the nature and culture, in between these binary oppositions, which are the very basis of the Western philosophy tradition. And I think, this is how we can learn the boundaries between those aforementioned dualisms. And this is why I got inspired a lot with post-human philosophy, the works of Rosemary and Francesca Ferrando, because they are speaking about the plural experience and plural perceptions of the world, which are not based only on some binary categories, as you mentioned before, the nature and culture. I guess this is maybe the moment where the gender justice and climate justice collide in the category of nature, which is opposing the culture and which is in a way dictating how bodies should behave, how should they be, in the argument of what is natural and what is not.
Absolutely.
It applies for the human body, in my case, let's say. It applies for other bodies as well. And it applies also for non-human bodies. So it seems like, for me, it seemed like they got trapped into this alien imagination. So for me, this post-humanism thinking is a tool how to imagine a different point of view, which is, I would say, decolonizing from this alien imagination which were created.
When you mentioned the nature culture binary, which is like also so important in the history, Western history, where traditionally nature is attributed to women and culture to men. It's like in almost every aspect of life it's visible. Even now when we are appropriating ourselves of digital tools, which traditionally culture and technology is mostly connected to a male person. So it's still present, which is really scary. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think we just started the question.
Actually, it was just a commentary, like the binary dichotomy, like nature culture, and how it affects also the gender distinctions.
Yes.
And how it's like used as some natural argument for oppressing women or other non-males.
This was actually one of the starting points for this video because I was working with the plants in my artistic practice, and I had this idea of creating some human-plant hybridity. But then I struggled with creating the visual because it was only replicating the way women were pictured with the plants, like super romantic points of view, where usually naked women are in the trees and stuff. So I tried to build something which is maybe based on details, so you can like imagine the rest and the image as a whole, and also something which is not necessarily replicating these ideas, because also when we look in the interpretations of the myth throughout the history of art, there is this moment when the authors don't speak about the sexual violence at all. Like the first plan is the heroization of Apollo's power, and the fact that there is a story about the rape. It's not even said. So I guess I try to avoid these replicating these
stereotypes.
Yeah, exactly.
And, absolutely, because we are approaching the elements or daily things with a new technique, a new approach, for example, skin. No, the skin is like from my personal observation, I believe that the skin is a concept in your artwork. Like it's not the traditional human skin as we know it, but it's the digital skin that you are creating, and also you are. I think that you are putting on the same level the human skin and the plant skin. So I also have a quote about skin. So in this context, I thought of the skin as playing a subversive role, as it's described by Legacy Russell, who wrote that the skin is as much about what is kept in and what it keeps out. It functions to edit its existence, determining what will be included or excluded. Skin suggests protection for a subject and the creation of another forever standing on the outside. As skin wraps, covers, protects, it paradoxically wounds, occupies, and builds worlds. Skin is both open and closed. Its presence suggests permanence, a border not meant to be crossed. But you, Paula, in your 3D animated film, you crossed these borders and transformed the skin very bravely. And can you please maybe tell us about your thoughts on the concept of digital skin? And if you see that it has some visual potential, and maybe also in the context of 3D animation, that is actually the tool to get such outcomes, no?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is, I think, one of the advantages in working in 3D, and also one of my motivations that you can build whatever you like without any limitation. If I would be creating this in a physical space with material, it wouldn't be so, let's say, realistic. So, and some people find it weird or disgusting, this visual, I don't know. And it's also because the visual, I guess, it's crossing the boundaries of fun and humor. It was created, it's a photogrammetric scan of ivy plant. Actually, that's what I forgot to mention, that in the original myth there is a laurel tree, but I decided to switch the plants because I'm working with ivy plant as a symbol for climate catastrophe. So in this way, by using the ivy in the video, I try to contextualize the ivy expansion for the resistance, because there are studies which say that in Europe there is this expansion of honey plasma forest resistance, and this is a direct reaction to climate catastrophe. So yeah, it was a photogrammetric scan from this forest in Bratislava, and it was covered with human skin. So I was playing with this imaginaries of hybrid imaginaries of human plant being, and also maybe there was this idea of like we don't know where one body begins or ends. So I know this is obvious, but everything is connected. So yeah, I can get very personal with a tree by having an allergic reaction, or yeah, and also the quote says that skin is considered something which is closed, but closed and is protecting. But in a way, it's not, because you have pores which are evaporating water. Also, I guess perfect example is like COVID pandemic. We were not able to fight against it with our skins. So yeah, I guess it was this idea of disrupting itself and the other environment.
I think it was very
like see, like to quote my favorite philosopher Michael Marder, to see oneself in a plant, recognize the plant in ourselves. So
it was really visible, because also the the super close-ups you did of the skin, you know,
Yeah.
it was very impressive, and I think that it's easy to relate to these ideas.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Maybe I would just say to these close-ups that they were inspired by the scientific animations for scientists. So that's the way how I wanted to create them, that they could really look like some exploration from scientific documentary. And yeah, I wanted them to be like crossing this taxonomical categorization, which were created by scientific objectivity rather than in the modern era. So yeah.
And when you mentioned the process of photogrammetry, I know from our previous conversation we had that you are also working with glitches, like these errors, these computational errors that appear when doing the photogrammetry, and you are not discarding these errors, but you are using them to incorporate them into your artwork, and they are sort of almost like an aesthetic, I would say. And the visual glitches we just saw, they seem to resonate with what Legacy Russell describes in her book Glitch Feminism. And she writes that we rely on the error of glitches to show us the machinic limitations, and in turn to get a sense of where we might hack further in pointed undoing. Through a more figurative lens, the presence of error offline as an unrecognizable body, a body without a name, reveals cracks in the seemingly glossy narrative of the absolute fixity of gender binary, exposing it as a carefully constructed fiction. So now here again we can reconnect to the topic of the binary and gender binary, and considering Russell's perspective on glitches and your interest in them, how would you describe it as your process of integrating these glitches into your artistic process? Like, are you maybe looking for them, or is it like with your like the time you are working with the 3D, maybe you have some strategies like how to do a good glitch, or you know what to
hunting glitches.
hunting glitches. And yes, so how would you say do they contribute into your narrative and your aesthetics, and especially when thinking about deconstructing the traditional visualization and representations we talked before, you know, of women, for example?
Well, I would say that when I create things, for me, glitch is an opportunity, and I don't consider glitch a failure. So I also remember one quote from Legacy Russell. I think she wrote something like glitch is an act of non-performance, like not being able to perform the role of the social order. So it's something which goes against the definition how we should be, how we should act, how we should behave. And well, if I'm hunting with glitches, no, I'm not. I'm patiently waiting for them to appear, but it's not happening just like all of a sudden. First, for me, I always want to surprise myself. I really my work is based on the moment of surprising myself with something unexpected. Maybe this connects also with one of my favorite thoughts from Francesca Ferrando, which I mentioned before. So her post-humanist teaching is based on the research of the etymological roots of the words we use. And based on thoughts of Martin Heidegger, she goes to the word of technology itself. And she goes to the ancient Greeks and the ancient words, and she says that this word technology, based in techno, which is necessarily connected with the word episteme, which means science, which is she said that it's not a surprise technology to be connected with science, we expect that. But the surprising part is that the word techne, which is the root of word technology, is necessarily connected with the word poiesis. And poiesis means act of creativity. It's some creative potential the technology necessarily has. So it's like she defines it as an act of creation, which is inherent to life itself. And she gives an example of a blooming flower. That, let's say, we can expect how the flower can look like, but we will never know the exact shape, the color, the angles and stuff. Or the jamming session with musicians, they are starting to compose things, but you don't know what the output will be. So this is a thing which I think inspires me a lot. The generative potential of technology, which is considered a rational tool based on logics, 0 and 1s, but then you still can have something creative in it, which is usually connected with irrational intuitive process. So, yeah, I wanted to say something.
And when you were talking about the etymology, I remember I read about the etymology of the word glitch, and it's I think it's from the German glitchen, and it's something like gliding, like when something gliding, glitchen, is when something like escapes, like glides away. I don't know if it's gliding, like Kozaca in Slovak. Slide. Yeah. So
maybe
sliding.
avoids
Yeah, like escapes, like slides away. So yeah, that's very interesting, the etymological approach also.
Yeah, and also it's really helpful when you actually for the very creative process as such, when you start to look on glitches as in opportunities for creation and not as in failures, you can like get relaxed or free more easily, like. And I remember when I was starting doing 3D and I was doing my first scans and they were imperfect, and I was frustrated that I should not be working with that because, of course, I was comparing myself to other 3D artists and stuff. But then, I was texting with one Spanish 3D artist, Paula Malinowska, and she said, like, aren't you interested in generative art? Like, working with the mistakes, and I didn't even know that there is this errorism art movement, and
Well, I mean, it's not like your artwork is based on a glitch, but it's just a small part. So in this sense, I think.
Let's say also the animation of the plant. It was created by binding the animation of human body to the body of the plant, and that's why it makes weird movements. But
okay.
Yeah.
And the texture you are putting on the plants?
That's like skin texture.
It's skin texture.
Yeah.
It was also a human skin texture?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was human skin.
Nice.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think that.
Because it looks like animal.
It was like very to the plant. It looked like it could be actually some small part of the plant, or it could be a color of the plant.
Yeah, like when I spoke about recognizing yourself in the plant, actually you can recognize yourself in the plant very easily by researching fractal patterns that we have on our skin. The wings are also on the bodies of the plants. So the structures are repeating, so it's not like our skin is somehow different. Also, trees are evaporating water to cool themselves down, I guess, it applies also for the human body. And also, let's say the fractal structure of our lungs is very similar to the structure of the tree branching, because they share the same function of respiration. So, I guess this is a good tool for, like, when we speak about looking for a new sensitivity towards the planet, towards the plants, towards ourselves in a way, and towards the notion of human. I guess, these similarities are very concrete examples.
Yeah, absolutely, they are.
Yeah.
And I mentioned before at the beginning that you are also a photographer, or that maybe you start with photography as your, let's say, first artistic practice. So I wanted to know, like, how was this transition from photography to 3D animation, and how did it help you to express yourself better artistically? And if you can tell us like a bit about the journey, like why did you decide to start 3D animation, and when did you begin that maybe photography is not enough to represent your artistic ideas? And also maybe what do you find like the biggest challenge for to start with the 3D animation? What was it for you?
Well, at some point I started to feel that the medium of photography is too flat for me, and I needed to add some volume to that. And then COVID came. So, yeah, we've been locked at home. I was actually studying photography for 4 years at the Department of Photography here in Bratislava, in Academy of Fine Arts and Design. Then I decided to go to the multimedia department because I wanted to learn how to work with space and installation, and then COVID came, so I wasn't able. So I told myself that, okay, I can still do that within 3D space, because for me it's, yeah, you can build the scene the same way as you exist in the physical space. It's a little bit creepy, but yeah, it's possible. It's possibility. So yeah, this is how I started to, and this is when the medium of photography connects with my 3D artistic practice is with the photogrammetry technique, which is the technique of taking pictures of the object from 360 angle and then uploading it into the program, and the algorithm finds the common points of the photographs and recognizes the mass of the object and generates the point cloud. The thing is that you have to have good lighting conditions, and this is when the glitch comes, that you don't have good lighting conditions, so the algorithm recognizes the contra light as an object, so it creates the glitch, and this is maybe what I like about that. So, and also maybe regarding to the glitches, before I started to do 3D art, I was working with this content-aware function in Photoshop, which is also an algorithm function which helps you when you are erasing a part of your image to fulfill the surface. So I got interested into why and how, and based on what the algorithm is deciding what it will put into the erased place. So,
and how is it working? So was it the algorithm you were researching from Photoshop? Like, how did it work, or did it lead you to some other ideas?
Well, in my case, I was working on a project it was called Garden of Earthly Light, and it was about climate catastrophe, and I was erasing a human figure from my photographs, and I was curious what the program fulfilled in the place of the human.
Yes.
When we talk about human extinction, that was the idea. And sometimes it erased the human body perfectly, that you would never know that it was there. Sometimes it just created some weird structure. But I think it takes the environment, the image which is surrounding the erased part of the image.
And completing it.
Yeah, exactly. And it also gets better with time. I guess it's like this Google translation algorithms which are learning.
Absolutely.
So, I'm not sure if I answered all of your questions.
Absolutely. Like you found this intersection between 3D animation and photography, especially in photogrammetry.
Yeah.
So.
Maybe to add how I think about when I work in 3D is I imagine myself like photographing the real object in 3D space. If I scan that, I photograph it once, and then I photograph it for the second time in 3D, then I can animate it. So it's like replicating the object. And also maybe what I'm experimenting now is to print the imperfect 3D scans. So I'm I'm curious, or I'm interested in this conversion of physical objects, run it through the algorithm, and then to print it and
then bring it back to the physical.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe photograph it.
Yeah, I could go in cycles.
Nice. So now maybe I have some 2 more questions. I don't know what time is it? How are we running?
70.
Okay. So last 2 questions, and then you and also people online can ask questions. So we are here in the context of trying to make the digital art more visible, and also artists doing digital art more visible. So from your perspective as a woman, an artist working with 3D animation, which somehow is still located out of those traditional artistic techniques. And can you please share your experience, like with the reception of your artwork, maybe in the context of the audience, the academy, the galleries, and opportunities to, let's say, present your artwork, and also in a space condition for that. And we are now in Bratislava, so in the context of cities like Bratislava, where we both come from, it seems that it's still a lack of dedicated spaces, like for new media art or digital art. So what, from your perspective, what do you think would be a next important step in order to make the digital art and the non-male digital artists more visible and also more accessible for a broader public?
Well, I think it's worth mentioning that we are living somewhere. As you mentioned, we are a little bit in the back, but through the art and in this local scene. That I guess good start for that. For this was already made by Silvia who started the digital art department in Fine Arts and Design. So I guess in this way, educating young people and motivating them to study digital arts is a good way. I guess we can expect more of it soon, because right now they have some outcomes.
So it only started
I guess 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
I'm not sure.
Okay. It's really
I love
new.
to check, but it's new.
Yeah,
It's the youngest department of the academy. So I guess that's one good thing for Bratislava. The other thing is maybe like I can imagine from like someone creating this digital gallery. I was in Lisbon for some time, and they have a digital gallery called Artemis, which is focusing on purely digital art. So yeah, but I guess this is possible only after digital art gains some recognition as a medium, as such. And I also think your project is a great way how to make digital art more visible, bringing it into conversation and showing it's possible. And also motivating people to not be afraid to start something new. Because that was also my struggle. I wanted to do 3D for a long time, but I was not brave enough to start. And at the end of the day, we all use YouTube tutorials. There is no recipe for this.
So that was actually my last question. Like, if you maybe could tell some words of support or recommendation for artists who maybe would like to start it, but are maybe afraid that it's too difficult or that it's not possible to learn it. So, how did you learn it? And also, if you could maybe share your experience, like it was COVID, I guess you saw many YouTube tutorials and learned by yourself, no?
Yeah.
So I think you are a great example that it's very achievable, and we saw the outcome, which is really impressive. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. We had a small course of photogrammetry back then when I was in photography department. And so this was my starting point, that someone gave me the first helping hand, like, no, it's possible, and you can do it by yourself. And then when you, I think, at least for me, where it's like, it seems super complicated and hard to start doing something, but the very first moment you see a result, it motivates you to do more. And as I said, it's important to not be afraid of errors and mistakes because they can lead into something original, I guess. And also, like, there are plenty of people. There's this Reddit platform where you can search for help on the internet. Everything is open source today. I'm working in blending program, which is free, so
it's open source.
Yeah, you only have to have a computer, but
It's a good computer.
that's a regular foundation. That's the only.
It's a limitation, but
I guess that's not be. I always like to motivational coach, and I guess to not be afraid of our own imagination and creativity, to just set it free
and just also maybe not to be afraid of making this error, because I think that's what blocks us. But in 3D, it's not like painting, like you do something and then you destroy. Actually, you can't do wrong, basically. And if it's wrong, so you put it one step back. And
when you talk about painting, I remember I had one struggle back then when I started to do my first 3D scans, and they were super glitchy, and they had this fake mask all over, and I was not sure if I should do the scan because I knew it was super imperfect. And then I asked my friend, like, what should I do? Like, is it okay to use the scan? Because I really liked it, but I knew, like, from the technical point of view, it's not enough. But my friend told me that, wait, but this is the character of photogrammetry. Like, this, like, when impressionists were painting with their way of painting, this is the medium itself. So, it's cool.
I agree. I absolutely agree. So thank you very much, and I hope we have some questions from our audience. Maybe someone wants to ask.
Maybe I have maybe two questions. We see in this movie like one person, this person should be like a non-binary person, because I've seen something else in there. And the second question is do you have some inspiration maybe in some cinematography or some movies? For example, I have seen the movie Annihilation. You have seen. I have some similarities in there. It was like also they was talking a lot about maybe not the similar thing, but it was like about shaping the DNA and stuff like this. So that's my two questions.
Annihilation was one of the inspirations, I guess, and also the new weird fiction, because it's from Van der Meer. It's the name of the author, I guess.
Yes.
He wrote Annihilation, and it's a genre of new weird fiction which is built on this weirdness, which tends to scare us, but not because it's scary itself, but especially because it's crossing the boundaries between the categories we used to think about.
It's fixed.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, and the face that was my self-portrait in the video. But it's just background story. It's just it was supposed to be a face, but the first sentence of the film is we always wanted to create ourselves. The idea was that I always wanted to create myself, meaning I always wanted to choose what I want to become. It applies to value autonomy questions. So that's why the me is there, because it speaks for us humans, but also for the plants who They are not speaking, they have no voice, but for sure they would like to have some autonomy and agenda, I guess.
And did you do 3D modeling of your face, like from scratch, or also with photogrammetry?
That's from scratch.
From scratch?
This was actually my first modeling experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
Thank you very much.
questions. More questions, please? Maybe some online questions?
I don't see.
Curious, like from the technical part, there is shot with these veins. There is some new stuff going through the veins, so it's animated with the texture, or how it is.
That's the glitch as well.
Yeah?
I had
Is this
it's a texture of the face I created for the face, and then the idea of the roots was to create some human roots, human body roots. The idea of the video itself is like putting the elements of the plant into the human and the human elements into the plant. So I put randomly the skin structure to the roots, and it created this blue veins. So I guess this is the accident we've been talking about.
But it's animated with like moving the texture, or it's
No, it's animated. How the roots are created is a simulation of growth, which is built in Blender. It's called ivy generator. It simulates the way of ivy plants growing. And when it's growing, I guess it moves the texture along. So the computer made it. Yeah.
I would maybe ask like how was your experience? Because like the movie is a quite complex thing. You need also the sound and the like other people to collaborate with you. Like, did you enjoy the process of building the movie with some sound artists?
Yeah, that's also what I wanted to mention. That the sound was created by visual artist and sound artist Andrzej Kai. The video edit I collaborated with Vladimira Mirakola, my dear friend, and the voiceover was created by or recorded by Christian Nikolowski of Night Couples. Maybe you know him. He's a singer and performer. So yeah, I enjoyed collaborating with those people a lot because I think that we have this same flow in the end of the day, and everyone contributed with their quality into the movie. So yeah, I think it's enriching too. I wouldn't be able to make this by myself.
Maybe a sub question, like, do you feel like they also a bit maybe influenced the movie in a way, like shaped somehow the idea?
Yeah, definitely. Like the sound is just it wouldn't work without the sound. I think the sound is I decided to make the first part of the video where the roots are going into the fictional underground. I wanted the animation to be really slow and really like a time lapse of the plant going in a way. That was the idea. And I like that Andre was able to create sound which would make it more not dramatic, but
more dynamic. Lapidary would be more tension.
Yeah, some tension. Yeah, so it's bringing the tension. It's not like meditative video of calm roots growing, but there is this like catastrophic in a way, sound in the background. So I guess that's, and also Christian with his voice, that's magical. You collaborate with him.
I must say I really enjoyed the complexity, like it really works together. The sound, the video.
Thank you.
Actually, one more question came to my mind now when Victoria asking you about the editing. So you had somebody to edit the editing of your video.
Yeah, I rendered the animation and then we worked together with
And for this short film, which is 12 minutes, 30 minutes, how many minutes of material did you have to make?
There was a lot of material which was not used, but I don't know.
I mean, was it like 15 minutes or 5 hours or? Like...
No, for sure not 5 hours. Yes, I don't know, 15
Okay. So it was like already your decision about the content and the story, and then like the editing or the final.
The first idea was to create 3 channels installation with 3 bodies. Each body will be on a different channel. Then I decided to put them in one and to create this effect of one body inside of the other, because that was also we are not like nuclear bodies which are not accessible to the environment and other bodies. Yeah.
So, do we have maybe some more questions?
Yeah, I would like to ask, maybe what were you reading during the time you were creating some literature?
I was reading Francesca Ferrando, Philosophical Posthumanism. That's, I guess, if someone is interested in posthuman philosophy, that's a great start, because the way she's explaining the topics and the thoughts is really inclusive. It's like she's really, and she also has podcasts on Spotify. There's, if you type into Spotify what is posthumanism, it's a great podcast how to start with this. And she really, while she's writing, she really makes sure that you will get the point. So she does the analysis and then she makes a conclusion to make things clear. So this was one of the important readings for me, and also I was with the posthuman knowledge as well. Then right now I read Elviaville, Death by Landscape. I was not reading it during the process, but it really connects to the topic of transformation. The whole book is about the transformation of women bodies into plants and the history of it and the social aspects of that. And what was I reading? I guess there was some Octavia Butler as well. A lot of things we got recommended from Maria Hlavera when she was in Springart. I was also reading multiple case studies. I usually research by typing things in Google and just looking through all of the links. It shows me that I find something interesting. So, yeah, I guess that's my reading tip.
I don't know if there are any more questions, but maybe you can ask also Paula afterwards. And if there are no more questions, so Paula, thank you very much for this conversation. I hope it was interesting for you. And once again, I invite you to check out and join the offDAC platform and community. It's offDAC.com. And I also wanted to say that this event was co-founded by Artico project, platform for art, economy and technology, and also co-funded by the European Union, and with the lovely support by Gallery Atelier 13, Atelier 13. So thank you very much, Paula.
Thank you.
Artistic